First up, at least 13 people have been killed in Southern California after mudslides. That number is likely to go up as rescue workers comb through the debris. Thousands have fled their homes in Southern California as a powerful rainstorm triggered flash floods and mudslides on slopes where a series of intense wildfires had burned off the protected vegetation just last month. Videos and photos shared on social media showed firefighters rescuing people in Montecito, cars being carried away in flooded roads, and explosions caused by a gas line rupture. The threat of mudslides prompted the county to order 7,000 people to leave their homes before the rains came in. Steve Bannon has now stepped down as the executive chairman of Breitbart News after the former White House chief strategist drew fire from U.S. President Donald Trump for harshly criticizing his eldest son. Bannon was quoted in a new book about the Trump White House as calling Donald Trump Jr. treasonous and unpatriotic for meeting during the 2016 presidential campaign with a Russian lawyer who is said to have damaging information on Democratic candidate Hillary Clinton. Bannon was fired by Trump back in August as the president tried to bring order to feuding factions in the White House, but both Bannon and Trump continued to communicate. Bannon has still remained an ally. Asia next, where North and South Korea held their first talks in more than 2 years on Tuesday, which Washington welcomed as a first step to solving the North Korean nuclear weapons crisis. Even though Pyongyang said that those were aimed only at the United States and not up for discussion, the U.S. State Department said Washington would be interested in joining future talks, but still stuck to its insistence that they must be aimed at denuclearization, showing that a diplomatic breakthrough remains far off. Russia has also welcomed the talks between North and South Korea. In a joint statement after 11 hours of talks with South Korea, North pledged to send a large delegation to next month's Winter Olympics in the South. South Korea says it will consider a temporary lifting of sanctions against North Korea during the period of the Winter Olympics in Pyeongchang next month. Former Catalan President Arthur Mas has now announced to step down as the head of his separatist political party to pave the way for new leaders of Catalonia's independence movement after reports of internal divisions. This follows an illegal referendum last October on the imposition of the direct rule on the region by Madrid. The pro-independence movement has become fractured over whether to continue its push for an independent state or to engage in talks with the Spanish government to gain more regional autonomy in the short term. A French court has ordered that Bollywood actress Malika Sherawat be evicted from an apartment in a posh part of Paris for failing to keep up with the rent. The court told Malika Sherawat and her French husband Cyril Oxenfons to $94,000 in rent that is owed and expenses, giving the green light for their furniture to be seized. The couple started to rent the apartment in the pricey 16th district back in January of last year for about 6,000 euros. But according to the owner, they never made that rent payment, making only a single payment of 2,700 euros. At a hearing in Paris in November, a lawyer for the couple said they were in financial difficulty. Poland's new prime minister has now fired several senior ministers and visited Brussels in an effort to patch up the relations with the European Union. But the prime minister said he would not unwind the country's most contested judicial reforms. Facing unprecedented EU legal action over the accusations of backsliding on democracy by politicizing Polish courts, the ruling party may seek to ease tensions in other areas like environmental policy or defense shortly after announcing the government changes. The PM left for his first face-to-face talks with officials in Brussels, the second foreign capital he's visited so far as PM. China defended its construction efforts on disputed islands after the Philippines said it plans to make a diplomatic protest to Beijing, which it described as a promise not to militarize two artificial islands in the busy South China Sea. China says they need to construct the necessary defense equipment for its territory, and these structures are not directed at any particular country. The Philippines says they will protest after aerial footage emerged on official state TV showing a fiery cross reef which appears to have been transformed into an airbase. Well, Taiwan's foreign ministry says that it will continue to seek international support in Taiwan's latest dispute with China regarding the civil aviation routes, adding that China's efforts to limit Taiwan's international participation will only increase in the future. China opened several disputed air routes last week, including a northbound M503 route in the Taiwan Strait, without informing Taiwan, contravening what the democratic government in Taipei said is a 2015 deal to first discuss such flight paths. China cited congestion of existing aviation routes as a reason behind this expansion. Taiwan's government has called China's unilateral move of expanding civil aviation routes in the Taiwan Strait as irresponsible, which threatens regional security. Africa next, where Nigerian police have fired tear gas and clashed with protesters during a demonstration by Shiite Muslims in the town of Abuja. The protesters called for the release of their leader, claiming he is suffering from bad health, in prison, and being denied treatment. Nigerian troops arrested one of the leaders of the Shiite Muslim sect and killed his deputy and chief spokesman in the raids in 2015. He currently remains under arrest. The killings endanger the efforts by President Muhammadu Buhari to bring security and stability to the country. U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson will convene a new high-level investigation into the harm that Washington says U.S. diplomats in Havana suffered an unexplained health attack. Tillerson has decided to convene an accountability review board, a special panel that evaluates cases in which U.S. diplomatic personnel or facilities have been damaged abroad. Francisco Palmieri, Acting Assistant Secretary of State for Western Hemisphere's Affairs, told a Senate hearing the new probe will be in addition to other U.S. governments to investigate, including one by the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Cuba has now slammed the United States, calling out an American investigation into a possible viral attack on its embassy staff in Havana as part of a political agenda. Cuban officials are conducting their own investigation. They've denied any involvement or any knowledge of what was behind it. U.S. experts are yet to determine who or what was behind the mysterious illnesses that began. It happened in late 2016. Asia next. South Korean President Moon Jae-in has said that denuclearization in the Korean Peninsula is an aim that cannot be abandoned. In a speech during his New Year's conference, Moon also said the government would continue working towards recovering the honor and dignity of former comfort women, a euphemism for girls and women forced to work in Japan's wartime brothels. Pakistan has suspended military and intelligence cooperation with the United States in the wake of U.S. President Donald Trump's allegation that Pakistan has given the U.S. nothing but lies and deceit and suspension of security for Pakistan. Speaking during a seminar, Pakistan's defense minister said the U.S. is facing defeat in Afghanistan despite spending billions of dollars. He alleged that the United States is using Pakistan as a scapegoat for its failures in Afghanistan. Ten children were among 24 people killed in airstrikes on a rebel enclave near the Syrian capital. Either regime or the Russian aircraft were responsible for the raids, the most deadly, which killed 13 civilians, including 7 children, in the Hamureya district of eastern Ghouta. Rebels bombarded 2 districts of the capital in retaliation, with Syrian state media reporting 4 people who were killed. Eastern Ghouta has been under government siege since 2013. Kensington Palace has confirmed that Prince Harry's fiancée, Meghan Markle, has shut down her social media accounts in line with royal tradition. The actor closed her Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram account. Kensington Palace said Markle is grateful to everyone who has followed her social media account over the years, but she's not used these accounts now for some time. All right, time now to take a look at some of the national stories this hour. First up, terrorist group Hizbul Mujahideen has now claimed that Aligarh Muslim University Manan Vani, whose photographs carrying an AK-47 assault rifle appeared on social media earlier this week, has joined them and that they have welcomed his decision. Presenting Wani as the latest poster boy for the Hizbul, a statement issued by its chief, Saeed Salahuddin, said this proved that educated youth were joining what he calls the struggle for freedom. Meanwhile, the ATS has now begun the process of identifying the core group of people with whom Wani was in touch with. India's Defence Minister Nirmala Sitharaman presided over India's show of naval might, in which more than 10 Indian Navy warships took part of India's western coast, and said the Defence Ministry the warships included the aircraft carrier INS Vikramaditya, 3 submarines, and various naval aircrafts that conducted operational maneuvers. Claiming that madrasas were producing more terrorists than civil servants, Shia Central WAQF Board Chairman Wasim Rizvi has now appealed to the Prime Minister to abolish madrasa boards across the country. They want to recategorize them as schools with a common secular education policy. In his letter to Prime Minister Modi, Rizvi suggested that madrasas should be registered under various state education boards. India's top court, the Supreme Court, on Tuesday said playing the national anthem before screening a movie wasn't required, reversing an order issued more than a year ago. The court left the decision to play the anthem to theater owners a day after the centre asked it to put its November 2016 order on hold that made playing the national anthem in cinemas a must. Former Jammu and Kashmir Chief Minister Omar Abdullah accused the Mehbooba Mufti-led coalition government of failure on all fronts. Abdullah said the government statements was an indictment against the PDP-BJP coalition government, proving its failure on all fronts. Abdullah said the situation in the state had drastically deteriorated since the PDP-BJP government assumed power. The government's promise of development was nowhere to be seen. A row has now erupted following media reports that 2 personal aides of Lalu Prasad were sent to a Ranchi prison to serve him hours before the RJD Supremo was lodged there after being convicted in a fodder scan case. The RJD, however, jumped to its leader's defense, insisting the presence of the 2 men was coincidental. Mato and Yadav were reportedly charged with minor offenses and were claimed to be serving Prasad as helpers and cooks. Well, Indian ambassador to China, Gautam Bambawale, met the editor-in-chief of the Global Times in Beijing.